Hello studious minds and welcome back to Pagan Philosophy, the channel where we, you know what. So I wanted to discuss the name of the channel, the term pagan, right? What is pagan? I see a lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of blog posts about what that word means, what the word paganism is referring to. And I'll admit, it's a dated term. It's an outdated, pejorative, it's a derogatory term, and the term is misleading, and it doesn't make sense. It's largely being disused right now in the academic community. There's a magazine I write for, a history magazine, and the problem with the word is that it sets Christians apart as special, while everybody else can be classified as a pagan. However, for some reason, I'm hesitant to change the name of the channel. And actually, the guest writers for the magazine were the first to inform me about how academia, modern historic academia, is trying to disavow that term and has been for some decades now. I wrote some papers about the decline of paganism in the Roman Empire. They completely rejected them. They wouldn't greenlight them because they said that the term pagan is too misleading. It's too antiquated, it's an archaic term, it doesn't make sense anymore, we can't use it. They told me to use the word polytheist instead. However, there were non-Christian monotheists in the Roman Empire, or monists, we can call them. People like Neo-Pythagoreans, people like Neoplatonists, like Manichaeans, the followers of Mani. And so what you have is a term that's all-encompassing to describe anybody who's not a Christian. Now there's a lot of problems with this term, and I'll just list a few as follows. Pagans, even though we call them all pagans, they didn't have a lot in common like we think, or like we tend to think. Take a Briton from Britannia during the time of the Roman Empire, and let's talk about a Phoenician who's all around the other side of the empire, and for some reason we think they're the same. We call them both pagans. They're both equally pagan, whereas you have a Christian and a Muslim. They're both deserving of completely different titles, different categories. They're not the same thing at all. But why is this? They probably have more in common than a Briton did with an Egyptian or a Phoenician. We don't use that word pagan to describe modern Taiwanese people and their religion. If you look up Taiwanese religion, they still sacrifice animals. There's temples to various gods. They're polytheistic. We don't call them pagan anymore. In fact, if you go there and you start calling them pagans, they're probably going to take offense because they're not pagans. However, if the Roman Empire extended all the way to Taiwan during that time, guess what the Christians would have referred to them as? They would have said they're just as much pagan as the people worshiping the Egyptian gods. And just a quick overview of the term, again, it arose during the Roman Empire when the Christians started to develop a way to stand out and differentiate themselves from everybody else in the crowd. By the time you get to early Byzantium and you get to Justinian and a few emperors around him, by and large, any types of pagans, polytheistic people completely went underground, went under the radar. The very last few were tortured to death, were killed. And so in what we would consider the Byzantine Empire, it died off relatively quick. But fast forward a couple centuries and then you have the Northern Europeans, the people we call the Norse in modern day Scandinavia. All of a sudden, the word pagan is back. Now they're using the word heathen to describe them, right? Heathen, again, actually that's what we call modern worshippers of the Norse gods. We call their religious customs heathenry. Again, that's the Christians. That's the Christian definition of what they're doing. They're not like us, so they're heathens. They're pagans because they worship Thor. They worship Odin. They don't worship our gods, so they're different. They need a specific category to describe them that lumps them together with everybody else that's not like us. And then fast forward a few centuries to the discovery of the New World, which my ancestors wouldn't have been calling the New World, it was just the world. And the Europeans come, and right again, that word heathen is back in motion. That word pagan is back in motion. We need to convert the heathen. We need to spread the gospel message to them. And fast forward to now, you have people reclaiming the title with these reconstructionist religions of people calling themselves modern pagans or neo-pagans, right? But we use that term to describe anybody who embraced polytheistic religion after its demise during Byzantium. So by the time you get to Gemistus Pletho, who was around, I think, during the time of maybe the beginning of the Renaissance, like the 14th century, we call him a neo-pagan, which means new pagan. And fast forward to today, 700 years later, we still have new pagans. So when is it going to stop being new, right? If anything, when we use the word pagan, at least here on this channel, we're referencing a specific moment in time. The polytheists of the Roman Empire, and maybe early Byzantium too, leading into the Middle Ages. We're talking about people, the non-Christians of the Roman Empire. So when we say pagan philosophy, we're talking about non-Christian philosophy that would have been around during the time of the Roman Empire and before. And we kind of use that word to describe the religions that we would say are culturally dead religions. You know, in Greece has embraced Christianity and is by and large a Christian majority. We don't say the majority of Greeks still worship Zeus and Poseidon because they've embraced Christianity, and they did during the time of the Roman Empire. And so for now, we're going to keep using that term for this channel because it's effective in getting the point across. Whenever I write an article or if I write a paper for school, I'm not going to use the term pagan. I will probably say polytheist or non-Christian monotheist, because the word, we're rejecting it in academia for a reason, because it doesn't make sense. It's misleading. So let me know your guys' thoughts on what you think of the term. I know there may be, actually, for a fact, there are some modern pagans who watch this channel, so feel free to give your 2 cents below. Let us know what you think about the term and the history you've done behind it. We could have discussions about that. And if you want to hear more about the history behind the term, let me know. I can make more videos about it. But until next time, friends, stay studious.